The ghost of the rock, the silhouette, rises from the San Francisco Bay, a desolate, unforgiving presence shrouded in the perennial embrace of a cold, churning fog. This is Alcatraz Island, a name that echoes with the harsh clang of steel cell doors and the whispers of America's most infamous criminals. It is the Rock, a fortress of concrete and absolute control, designed not just to house men, but to break the will of those deemed incorrigible by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Before it was a maximum security penitentiary, it was a Spanish fort, a military garrison, and a prison for military offenders. But in 1934, at the height of the Great Depression and the reign of notorious gangsters like Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly, the U.S. government repurposed it for a singular, brutal goal: to create an escape-proof prison. Its isolation was its greatest weapon. The frigid, 55-degree water and the powerful, 4-knot tidal currents that ripped through the Golden Gate Strait were considered a more formidable barrier than any wall of steel or concrete. Life inside the cell house, a monolithic structure nicknamed the Big House, was a study in severe monotony. The atmosphere was one of suffocating silence and relentless routine. The daily schedule was calibrated to the second: the 6:30 a.m. wake-up whistle, the silent march to the dining hall, a place ironically nicknamed the mess hall for the tension, not the food, and the monotonous, often repetitive, labor in the industrial shops. Prisoners were assigned a number, stripped of their names, and governed by an unforgiving code of conduct. They were guaranteed only 4 things: food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Everything else, a library book, a visit from family, even a 15-minute shower, was a privilege earned through strict compliance. The prison's design was a masterpiece of surveillance and control. Elevated, enclosed gun galleries ran along the length of the cell blocks, allowing armed guards to monitor the corridors without ever entering them. The cells themselves were narrow, 5 feet by 9 feet, containing a cot, a toilet, and a small sink. For the prisoners, the most profound psychological torture was the constant proximity to freedom. Through the small, barred windows, especially on the western side of the cell house, they could sometimes see the shimmering lights of San Francisco, hear the faint sounds of music and conversation, or watch the yachts sail by, a beautiful, mocking vision of the world they had lost, separated by less than 2 miles of deadly water. Discipline was paramount, and the consequence for disobedience was swift and terrifying. The worst place on the Rock was D Block, or the Hole. Cells 9 through 14 were the deepest form of isolation. Inmates sent there were stripped, locked in pitch darkness for days on end, given only bread and water, and sometimes chained to the wall. The despair in those concrete bunkers was said to be palpable, a place where men's minds often shattered long before their bodies did. Yet, despite its reputation, the Rock became famous not for who it contained, but for those who tried to defy it. Over its 29 years as a federal penitentiary, 36 men were involved in 14 separate escape attempts. Most were quickly captured, shot, or drowned. The most violent was the Battle of Alcatraz in May 1946, a desperate, 2-day siege where 6 inmates seized control of a portion of the cell house, resulting in the deaths of 2 guards and 3 inmates, and requiring the intervention of U.S. Marines. The island held firm. But the legend of Alcatraz will forever be tied to the events of June 11, 1962. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, executed one of the most brilliant and meticulously planned escapes in penal history. Over months, using crude tools fashioned from stolen utensils and a vacuum cleaner motor, they painstakingly dug through the air vents beneath their sinks, which had been softened by the bay's corrosive salt air. They masked the noise with the blare of musical instruments from the prison's music program. On the night of the escape, they left behind elaborate, lifelike dummy heads made of plaster, flesh-toned paint, and real hair in their beds, fooling the night guards during their routine checks. They slipped through the holes, climbed the utility corridor, and from the roof, they descended and pushed off into the churning bay on a homemade raft constructed from stolen raincoats, sealed with heat and glue. They vanished. The official FBI conclusion was that they drowned, swept out to sea. But no bodies were ever definitively recovered. The mystery endures, immortalized in film and folklore. Did they make it? The uncertainty surrounding their fate became the ultimate, final act of defiance against the institution that promised to contain the uncontainable. Just 9 months later, in March 1963, Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary closed. The official reason was the exorbitant operating costs. It was 3 times more expensive to run than any other prison, mainly due to the immense cost of transporting all fresh water and supplies to the island. Yet, the persistent escape rumors and the decaying, structurally unsound cellhouse were contributing factors. Today, Alcatraz is a National Historic Landmark, visited by millions who walk the chilling corridors, peer into the empty cells, and stare out at the unforgiving bay. The wind whispers through the broken windows, and the sound of the gulls is constant. The rock stands as a chilling, powerful symbol, not just of American justice, but of the unyielding, desperate human desire for freedom, even from the most inescapable of cages. The ghosts of the inmates are silent, but the story of Alcatraz is loud, a permanent echo in the history of crime and punishment.